I would have done it differently, right? I would not have.
But
I would not have
enough to cast out for Canadians.
Looks like not even the Prime Minister can get away from the crime in Canada. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today, we've got more details I showed you briefly on the previous video of Mark Carney and Justin Trudeau's bank accounts being snooped on by an RBC employee. Turns out this isn't just some random employee. They think this is organized crime, gangsters going after the top dog's cash. Who has the most money? It's the Prime Minister. We got Gary Anasandri making an absolute fool of himself. This is a never-ending story. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, we got Carney heading to the UK for trade talks with world leaders. This is coming after going to the UN. He came back for one House of Commons session. Now he's off again. This guy's spending more time abroad than he is in Canada. Got this one here. Doug Ford says he's going to introduce legislation tomorrow that would remove speed cameras across Ontario. Believe it when I see it. We've got this one here. Emily Lowen, an environmental activist who just turned 25 years old 6 days ago, as Shrey T says, just got elected as the leader of the Green Party of British Columbia. I'm sorry, but no, you don't have enough life experience to be a leader at 25. A 25-year-old who's never had a real job is the perfect person to lead the Greens. Yeah, no kidding. That sound you're hearing is David Eby popping a champagne cork. There'll be no split left-wing vote next election. Moving ahead, we've got this one. So a little update here to the situation. RBC employee taking a peek at Mark Carney's net worth and Justin Trudeau's. Well, he's getting charged.
An employee at the Royal Bank of Canada has been officially charged with accessing the bank records of Prime Minister Mark Carney. Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne was asked about this while leaving today's caucus meeting.
I have barely seen the report, so it's difficult for me to comment on something specific, but it just reinforced that we need to have strong procedures in place, obviously, to preserve, privacy, and it applies to all Canadians, So it just reminds everyone that, privacy and having system to prevent, fraudulent access to anyone's file is something that we should all be concerned about.
This is ridiculous because, well, yes, this guy did break the law for that. When he talks about privacy, Mark Carney's the Prime Minister, and this is what we got. This is how many investments he has. We need more disclosure on how much money he has and where that money is in his investments. We should know exactly how much money he has invested in all of these primary stocks that he self-administers as an RRSP. Like, what does he have in Brookfield? We should know this. I mean, he shouldn't even allowed to have this, but at the very least, we should know if he's got $100 million or is it 100 grand? It's definitely not 100 grand. My guess is he's got about $50 million at least in Brookfield. And Stripe, probably the same thing. Unfortunately, too, this guy getting charged, he took a peek, but did he release information? I didn't see it. Essentially, nothing comes from this.
RCMP have charged 23-year-old Ibrahim El Hakim with fraud over $5,000, unauthorized use of a computer, identity theft, and trafficking in identity information. And RBC says while we cannot comment on specifics of matters before the court, we can share that we independently identified unauthorized system access, took immediate action to engage authorities, and the individual named is no longer employed at the bank. We worked closely with law enforcement to support their investigation.
All I've got to say on this story is I've been an RBC customer since I was 10 years old. They allowed someone to wire transfer $6,000 out of my account, draining my bank account a handful of years ago to Milan. My money went to Milan through a wire transfer without my signature. And when I went there to confront them on it, they showed there was a signature. It wasn't mine. They didn't want to give me my money back until I started yelling. I'm still in the process of getting rid of my RBC account. I highly suggest all of you to take a look at Wealthsimple or EQ Bank. You get much higher interest rates. These losers offer almost zero interest rate on any money sitting in your account. What's the point? If you want to check out Wealthsimple or EQ, I got a couple links in the description down below. This should be open to the public for scrutiny, seeing that no one in the government is willing to do it. This person needs a raise. An employee arrested over frozen bank accounts. Ooh, that is a good point. Freezing the bank accounts, no problem, but somebody pokes their head in on Mark Carney's net worth, and that is a problem. Fine when the government freezes our assets. Canadians don't forget. This is quite the scene here. So this whole story with Mark Carney and RBC, it is evolving as I'm filming this. We're getting more details now. It turns out organized crime is behind this. Gangsters are trying to get Mark Carney's cash.
A few quick words about your bank records. Your bank records. What did the RBC say about your bank records?
It is an unprecedented criminal case. Just down the street from Parliament Hill, inside this Ottawa banking branch, a former RBC employee was allegedly accessing Prime Minister Mark Carney's personal and financial information for criminal purposes. A 23-year-old Ottawa man Ibrahim El Hakim, was arrested by RCMP in July and is now facing 4 criminal charges, including fraud over $5,000, unauthorized use of a computer, identity theft, and trafficking in identity information, which was first reported by the Montreal newspapers La Presse and Le Journal.
What's interesting about this document they showed here, it says September 3rd, 25. And as you're going to hear here, gangsters have been going after him for 2 years now, knowing he's a big-time banker and has a lot of money.
The RCMP says it does not believe there is any threat to Carney's safety or national security, but Montreal newspapers indicate organized crime may be involved. Police did not say how many profiles may have been accessed in the security breach, but court documents obtained by Global News suggest the unauthorized access may have been happening for nearly 2 years, starting as far back as November 2023.
Unauthorized access to Mark Carney's accounts for 2 years by organized crime. I gotta say, this is kind of funny. It's karma. Canadians are begging for the Liberals to do something about the crime, and now the crime is hitting the guy right at the top, Mark Carney.
It puts a dent in the trust factor. I mean, if any employee can go and snoop around, detection is great, right? But it's after the fact. So there needs to be more real-time activity and have what's called least privileged access.
El Hakim is expected to appear at the Ottawa courthouse next week, and the RCMP say he could face even more charges.
Well, isn't that interesting? Looks like we all get affected by this now. So there's a bunch of comments here because Jillian Piper here, this is her first story on Global today, and now people are saying like next to Ford in the Greenbelt, 65 billion unreconciled funds. We've got 400 million from the Green Slush Fund. Here we have El Hakim, the guy digging around Mark Carney's bank accounts. You can't make this up. It's not just Mark Carney, Justin Trudeau as well. So they're sniffing around for that big cash. They know who has the most money in Canada. It's the prime ministers. Now, while we're talking about buffoons here, we got the CCFR posting this clip here. Gary Anasandri, this guy is a clown. He should be fired. This interview with Vassy, she absolutely destroys him here. He's a walking, talking disaster.
I take your characterization as, what happened, the aim of it being to obstruct, and certainly the leak came from an organization that doesn't want to see this go ahead. But you have not refuted the content of what was leaked, and that's why I asked you about whether or not you're going to resign. And I'll ask more specifically what informs that question. You told the individual in that conversation that you can't explain the logic of the buyback program. If the public safety minister in charge of implementing the program can't explain its justification, why should Canadians accept one?
So this is a conversation that took, it was a 20-minute conversation, 20 minutes or so conversation. It was
Yeah, okay, so what? 20 minutes. He always goes to this and he says it was a private conversation. So what?
recorded without my knowledge. Notwithstanding that, much of the conversation were part of previous conversations I've had with this individual. The logic of this, I know he does not accept. I have tried to explain this in the past. We have not been able to agree on it. So that's why I dismissed it as such. Where I was misguided, there was two times. At one point I said, I will bail him out. And another time I said, I will compensate him. Obviously, they're in a private conversation, not to be taken at face value.
That's a load of crap, and he knows it. This guy's going around telling people this is a voluntary program, which is a outright lie. You'll get arrested if you don't participate. It's being forced.
You're a minister. With all due respect, you're a minister of the Crown who is in charge of the public safety of this country. Why would you make light of a program you know is fraught with controversy?
Actually, this is a 20-minute conversation I had with someone I've known for many years. I'm sure if you were recorded in a private conversation, there may be things that you would have said, or things, the way you say it, that may be different than in a public setting.
You know, when you kind of try to diminish.
He has nothing. He literally has no way to justify his actions. He doesn't believe in the program. He admitted it.
The significance of what you said, and I understand it's a longer conversation. I understand it wasn't recorded with your permission. But the bottom line is your comments are out there now in public discourse, in the public domain. And these are Canadians as a whole, in the aggregate, who are looking to you as the Minister of Public Safety to ensure their own public safety. The things you do, I think they should be trusting of. You also reference in this conversation political implications. Quebec is in a different place than other parts of Canada, right? And this is something that is very much a big, big deal for many of the Quebec electorate that voted for us. You also go on to say that you would have a, quote, very different approach. Yeah. What about those comments would imbue a sense of confidence among Canadians in this program when you yourself, Minister, don't appear to have it?
So let's talk about Quebec for a second. So in Quebec, we've had three major incidents involving firearms. So we had the major one, of course, being L'École Polytechnique. Then we had very recently the Quebec City mosque shooting, and then we had Dawson. So these are many instances where Quebecers have a heightened sense of gun violence.
He's using these mass events as a justification when really it's the goblins, goons, and gangsters on a daily basis, home invaders, carjackings that are really scaring Canadians, because the odds of being involved or even being in crossfire of one of those big events is very low. But the odds of a person kicking in your door and pointing a pew-pew at you and stealing your car is fairly high. You look at those crime maps that they have in Ontario and they're outrageous. You can't even see the streets because there's so many little dots on there of all the crimes. They're just doing this for votes. They're trying to buy votes in Quebec.
If you look at polling, for example, Vassy, 80% of Quebecers support this, 70% of rural Quebecers support this program. This is very much an important issue for many of our caucus members, including, of course, Natalie Prevost, who is a survivor of the L'École Polytechnique. So in that context, Quebec is an important part of it, but it's not just Quebec. It is.
Though that 70% of Albertans and Saskatchewans who don't support
there's those on the Danforth, as you know, the shooting on the Danforth that happened several years ago. We've had a number of incidents, for example, Mass Casualty Commission in Nova Scotia. That's precisely why we're doing this in Nova Scotia.
I got to give this guy credit. He holds his facial expression pretty well. It's his stuttering is what his tell for when he's nervous about something.
You're worried about the impact, though, in Quebec because you have so many MPs there, because it's been so key to your electoral gains in the last election. And are you not worried about the public opinion polling in Alberta and Saskatchewan because you don't have representation there? And is this then as crass a political move as a policy one?
Ding, ding, ding. Vassy got it there. That's exactly what's going on. It's all about buying votes, don't care about the West. It's not just Vassy destroying this guy. We've got a panel here on CTV. I believe she works with Doug Ford or worked with Doug Ford. She destroys him too.
To say about this in so little time. First, to Kathleen's point about equating this to Lisa Rait's inappropriate comments. These aren't inappropriate comments. This is an admission that a hallmark policy of this government is flawed. It's a solution that doesn't actually even remotely address the problem of crime. And the minister is desperate for Canadians to think that everybody's wandering around with an AR-15. It could have been a drinking game, sincerely, of how many times he said AR-15, that he wants everyone to think, you know, they're everywhere. Oh my God, I'm going to be so scared. We have a crime problem. We have a bail problem. We have an illegal gun problem. We have a leaky border problem. None of this addresses that. And it's so much money spent on a policy that won't fix the actual problem. And he himself, and Dan just did it again, admitted that this is about politics in specific regions. So do a carve out in Quebec. Bring this policy out in Quebec. We do so many other carve-outs for Quebec, but don't impose it across the country. It's a waste of money. And calling for the minister's resignation. Sure, he should resign, right? Like he was sloppy. He wasn't careful with his words. But really, he was honest. And I think honestly, Conservatives should just call for more ministers to be honest about this god-awful policy.
Yeah, that's checkmate. It's interesting, too, her mentioning the carve-out in Quebec. That's a good idea. Now, you have to wonder, why isn't it starting in Quebec? They're starting it in Nova Scotia, also Liberal stronghold, but population much lower. They want to make sure this works and it doesn't stir up the population too much before they go over to their big stronghold in Quebec, because they don't want to rock the boat if this program is not going to work as intended. These Liberals are so sneaky and conniving. In other news, we got this guy out on bail and arrested again last Friday in Niagara Falls. A man was already facing charges walked into a hotel, pow-powed a female employee and fled. This is exactly why Canadians are demanding jail, not bail. Thanks, Liberals. They don't want to lock these guys up, but don't worry, they're coming for your pew-pews.
This is complemented by the $1.3 billion investment at our borders that we did last December, along with 1,000 new RCMP and CBSA officers that we're working on.
How many have been hired?
Well, right now, the actual, we're waiting for the budget decision. So the prep work is happening. And as soon as the budget
He's got nothing.
2020. We've had 3 separate orders and councils totaling 2,500 makes and models. What we expect is that AR-15s, for example, there's roughly about between 80 to 90,000 AR-15s that are out in the community. We anticipate people will be taking advantage of this program. get compensation for returning the item or deactivating it to ensure that it cannot be used.
This language should be illegal. We hope Canadians will take advantage of this great offer, this program. What are you talking about? You're forcing this on Canadians. Either they participate or they go to jail. This framing should be illegal.
What we do want is, this is,
But if that,
as I said,
that isn't the crux of the problem. If the crux of the problem is illegally obtained weapons coming in from the U.S., why isn't the priority placed on actually hiring the people at the border that you said months ago that you would hire? Why isn't the priority on making sure $750 million that you will allot to this program is effectively spent and that police forces are going to enforce it? We have none of those assurances at this moment.
So let me start with the dollars involved in this.
The reason why is because they want to make sure, Carney wants to make sure that that Donald Trump issue, the boogeyman, does not go away. So he's not going to strengthen the border. He recognized Palestine. He's going to do whatever possible to piss off Donald Trump to keep him ready for the next election. He doesn't want Donald Trump at half strength. He wants him at full strength. So he's not going to do anything to appease Trump. Just look at it. What has he done to appease Trump? Nothing. He kept the negotiations going on a little bit, gave up the DST. Really, he's not doing anything to make a deal with Trump, and he's just pissing him off.
Program, so this was all previously budgeted. So this was all part of several budget cycles, including budget.
It's great. It's all taxpayer money. It's all our money.
Well, it is already budgeted. It's been, the commitment was made, so we're implementing it.
Idea of should even go forward and saying that he would himself pursue a different approach.
I mean, with great respect, I did not say it shouldn't go forward. I did say that I would have done it differently, which is contextually very different.
Is it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. When I say something, when there is a program that I'm implementing that, you know, has been in the works for 5 years and I'm at the tail end of implementing it, then
it's been promised for 5 years. It's barely been in the works. It's only the second pilot.
Well, there's been a number of attempts, and I'm implementing it. I'm tasked to implement it. And what I've said was I would have done it differently, right? I would not have.
But
I would not
that
have
enough to cast out for Canadians who are wondering, is my money going to be spent?
Vassy, you have a different approach to journalism than another colleague who may be doing the exact same role. I would have done primarily on the timing of it. I would not have left it continue for 5 years. I would probably.
This guy's an absolute disaster. He's a walking, talking disaster. He has to be fired immediately. He should have been fired when the whole Tamil Tigers thing came up. Like, we can't have someone like this in control of public safety. This is absurd. All of this is insane.
We would have had it done a lot earlier. There was confusion, there's frustration, there's distrust. And one of the things that I would have liked to avoid is bringing legitimate hunters, legitimate people who own, law-abiding people who own firearms as part of the conversation. But
instead, they're just going to ban everything because they're taking away freedoms one piece at a time and want to make sure to disarm all these people first. I want to jump back over to the UN. We've got footage now of what happened with Donald Trump. The reason why he went nuclear on the UN, he was only supposed to speak for like 15 minutes. He went for an hour. When he's walking up to the escalator, they shut it off. When he went to go talk, they shut off his teleprompter. They tried everything possible to piss him off, and he just completely dumped on them.
Mr. President!
It was Donald Trump's entrance to the United Nations.
What is the message? What is the message?
That led off his laundry list of grievances.
These are the two things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter.
But Trump didn't need a script to share how he really felt about his fellow world leaders.
Trump was right about everything. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true.
A rambling and often incoherent president, calling climate change a con, hinting at killing illegal immigrants, and said Russia's war in Ukraine should have been easy to end.
Incoherent. He was ripping them a new one. Like, let's just call it what it is. He's calling out the corruption and crap that's around the world. While he was patting himself on the back a bunch, as he always does, he was dropping some serious truth bombs there. No one else had the courage to drop.
The UN for not helping.
All they seem to do is write a really strongly worded letter and then never follow that letter up. It's empty words, and empty words don't solve war.
The scorned prime ministers, presidents, and royalty mainly sat in silence. Mark Carney staying for Trump's entire 57-minute speech, which didn't mention Canada.
So I said in the video when I initially put up the whole section, there's about 10 minutes of him talking about eco agenda and how it's nonsense. And I wanted to see Carney's face. That was his face while he was watching this. Solemn, rejected, defeated. Look at this guy. He did not like that speech because that's where one of his big ticket investments are. Stripe. He wants that cash cow to pay out. I'm sure he's hedging on the Stripe investment, carbon credits and all that as the big winner. But if it doesn't pan out, he has all his other investments in America as the hedge that will go up slowly, safely, but not nearly the multiple.